All right, guys, this is my Pachakacha for Devil in the White City. Here we go. I think that quote really says it all. But it might surprise you to learn that that's not a quote from American Horror Story. It's not a quote from a horror movie. It's not even a quote from a Stephen King novel. No, this quote comes from America's first serial killer, as told by Erik Larson in his book, The Devil in the White City. The White City being the name for the city of Chicago. It gave itself during the Chicago World's Fair of 1893. Now you may be thinking, that World's Fair sounds really boring. I don't really want to learn much about it, but you could not be further from the truth. I mean, starting with the fact the Chicago World's Fair of 1893 introduced us to some of the things we know and love today, like the Ferris wheel, the zipper, Aunt Jemima's pancake brands, even Cracker Jacks. Even the first dishwasher was demonstrated during the Chicago World's Fair, let alone the beauty of the city. But amidst all that was this house at the corner of Wallace and 63rd Street. This house on the outside looked normal. On the first floor, it was a pharmacy. On the third floor, it was a hotel. But on the second floor, it was a maze of horror, death, and fear. The house belonged to none other than America's first serial killer, H.H. Holmes, a man who was responsible for possibly the deaths of 200 innocent people. He used the fame of the fair to lure his victims into his house of horror and death. One such victim that Erik Larson tells us about in his novel is Annie Williams. And he writes, "At first it seemed as though the door had closed by accident. The room was utterly without light, and Anna pounded on the door and called for Harry. She listened, then pounded again, but she was not frightened, just embarrassed. She did not like the darkness, which was more complete than anything she had ever experienced, far darker, certainly, than any moonless night in Texas. She rapped the door with her knuckles and listened again. The air grew still, and the panic came as it always did. Holmes imagined Anna crumpled in a corner. If he chose, he could rush to the door, throw it open, hold her in his arms, and weep with her at the tragedy just barely averted. He could do it at the last minute, in the last few seconds. He could do that. Or he could open the door and look in on Anna and give her a big smile, just to let her know that this was no accident. Then close the door again, slam it, and return to his chair to see what might happen next. Or he could flood the vault right now with gas." We might be thinking to ourselves, the Chicago World's Fair of 1893 sounds boring. Sounds like a lecture from a boring history class. What Erik Larson does so well in this book is bring history to life. Makes history rock. You don't believe me? Look into some of the critical reviews that have been given to Erik Larson's book. The San Diego Tribune, Time Out New York, the Dallas Morning News, Esquire, and Newsweek have all raved about Erik Larson's grisly tale of murder and death. I want to leave you with this thought. Erik Larson opens his novel with this quote, "How easy it is to disappear." Find yourself disappearing in this book. So I ask, who might want to read Devil in the White City? Could be good. Think about it.